Hello and welcome to This Week with Ajaz Haque. It is Sunday, August the 2nd, 2020. Eid al-Adha was celebrated in the Middle East, Europe and North America on Friday and in Pakistan on Saturday. So Eid Mubarak to everyone who is watching this program, and thank you very much for tuning into my YouTube channel. Today we'll talk about where Kashmir situation is. Trump in turmoil, a parliamentary coup in Pakistan by the Prime Minister, update on COVID situation, and then the construction boom that is starting in Pakistan, and the financial markets, and the petrol prices in India and Pakistan. It's been a year almost since India changed its laws and usurped Kashmir from its status of a disputed territory to a part of India, which has caused much consternation, and Kashmir is under lock and curfew for almost a year. Extremely critical situation in Kashmir, but the world powers have not impressed upon Mr. Modi enough to do something about that, and hopefully in time Mr. Modi will come to his senses and things will change. Now, Mr. Donald Trump is in turmoil because this time a postal ballot is going to be used because of the COVID situation, and Mr. Trump is worried that a lot more people will vote from the comfort of their home by just mailing the ballot. So chances are that many of his opponents will end up voting, whereas previously that didn't happen. So he's complaining that the postal ballot is no good and that the election should be postponed. But even the Republicans are opposing him, and the writing is on the wall. But as I always say, the poll numbers change and don't constantly remain. In the last elections, remember, even on the last day, Hillary Clinton was leading by 5 points and then she lost. So one never knows what happens. But right now, as far as the delegate count goes, Mr. Biden seems to be well ahead. And unless something drastic happens, he should win the election. But I guess we have to wait until the 2nd of November to see what happens. Now, there was a parliamentary situation in Pakistan during this week. The government needed to pass two bills which were required by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and these were presented to a joint parliamentary committee. And instead of considering those bills, the committee came up, opposition-led committee of course, they came up with suggestions that the NAB law should be amended first, and then they will consider these two laws, even though there was a timeline by 5th August these laws had to pass. So the government coaxed them into coming up with their suggestions on NAB law and assured them that they will be considered. So lo and behold, the opposition came up with a 35 amendment bill to the original 37 clause bill. 35 amendment to the 37th clause. And basically decimating the accountability law and letting them go scot-free with all the corruptions and crookery and the loot and plunder they've committed in the last 20 years. And the most amazing clause they wanted to add was that even if a person is convicted by the accountability court, he will continue in his office and he will continue to perform the function of a minister, member of parliament, senator, governor, or whatever, until such time as a final appeal is decided by the Supreme Court, which could be 5 years or 7 years. Utterly ridiculous. Anyway, smart play by Imran Khan's government. They made these proposed amendments public, and that was very embarrassing for the opposition. Most TV shows and most TV pundits criticized the amendments. Now, the next step was to pass those two bills. So the government threatened to call a joint session of Parliament and pass those laws. The opposition realizing they've lost the game, they asked the government not to call a joint session, and they agreed to support the bill. So in fact, they supported, but they voted for the bills. the House had already passed the bills and they went to Senate. The Senate Select Committee had a 1-hour brief session and they approved the bill, and an hour later the bill was on the floor of the House and passed with a majority. So the opposition had a collective egg on their faces. In fact, had they said that, look, these bills are important for the country, let's pass these first and we'll talk about the NAB law later, perhaps the government would have a softer attitude. But since they tried to blackmail the government, they ended up being caught in it. And after these laws were passed, Mr. Bilal Zardari said that he'll write to FATF and tell them that these were pushed through. So he will go against the country, basically. Is that what he's saying? And Mr. Ahsan Iqbal, who's always spewing poison whenever he opens his mouth, he said he'll write to the United States about it. These idiots don't realize the United States is not their lord and master anymore. Have they not tried in the last 2 years approaching the US against the Imran Khan government, and have they received any support? Zilch. Things have changed. The world reality has changed. Donald Trump has no interest in Pakistan's internal politics. So these guys are still beholden to the past because that's how they came to power, by getting approval from Washington. Very unfortunate that an educated man like Ahsan Iqbal should say something stupid like that. Anyway, moving on. The COVID situation update is good news. In Pakistan, the coronavirus is almost dying. The reported cases so far are 279,000 and the recoveries are 248,000 and the deaths are just under 6,000. In 1 week, only 6,000 new cases were reported and 11,000 recoveries were reported. In the US, there are 50 to 60,000 cases, new cases every day. So the total so far is 4.7 million reported cases, 2.3 million recovered, and 157,000 deaths. UK, where situation seems to be somewhat precarious in certain parts since the opening. There are 700 to 800 new cases every day, 304,000 reported cases in all, and 46,000 deaths. So things in Pakistan are looking good. The recoveries are now twice as much as the new cases, and hopefully in another month or two we'll see the numbers decline considerably. Now, construction industry in Pakistan is about to experience a massive boom. The Prime Minister's new housing scheme and also the concessions for the construction industry, where the taxes have been cut by 90%, a major construction boom is starting. The prices of cement companies, share price of cement companies, are skyrocketing because of the consumption of cement that is expected. Also, with the start of Haque Dam, that will require enormous amounts of cement as a concrete fill dam, and the housing will require massive amounts of cement. So those investors who are holding cement shares should see good days ahead. Now, a roundup of the financial markets. S&P 500 closed at 3271, which was up 1.7%. Nasdaq closed at 10745, up 3.7%. FTSE closed down at 5.98, which is down 3.7%. Mumbai Sensex closed down at 37,606, which was minus 1.4%. Shanghai Index closed at 3310, which is up 3.6%. And the most roaring gain this week was the Pakistan Stock Exchange, which closed at 39,258, up 4.4%. Brent crude is now trading at 43.32 and West Texas crude at $40.43. Now, the Indian fiscal deficit in the first quarter is $885 billion, which is 83.2% of the entire year's deficit projected. So basically, things are not going well as far as that is concerned. The target for the whole year, current fiscal year in India, was 3.5% of GDP, but it now looks like 7.5% of GDP. That's where it will end up. Now, a comparison of the gasoline prices in Pakistan and India in US dollar terms. In Pakistan, the super petroleum is 62 cents. In India, it's $1.08. Diesel in Pakistan is 65 cents. It's $1.59 in India. The Pakistan rupee against the dollar is 167 and the Indian rupee 74.93. That's all for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and look forward to seeing you next week. Please, if you have not subscribed to my channel, I request you to do so and press the bell icon. And thank you very much. Goodbye.